day 1107 of this Trump administration, which leaves just 278 days to go until the 2020 presidential election. The impeachment trial appears to be all over but the muffled shouting. By a vote of 51-49, Mitch McConnell delivered a big victory for his president, and no further witnesses will be called nor evidence examined. Two Republicans crossed over, Romney and Collins, yet even though the facts were not in dispute, even though some Republicans conceded wrongdoing on the part of the president, his party has now carried him to the brink of acquittal, and they've arranged it so the entire Senate will get to watch the Super Bowl. And today's vote happened despite news breaking all around that was not good for the president or his team. The New York Times got on the board early with another story about John Bolton drawing from his new book, written by Maggie Haberman and Michael Schmidt, who is standing by to join us. They write together, quote, more than 2 months before he asked Ukraine's president to investigate his political opponents, President Trump directed John Bolton to help with his pressure campaign. Mr. Trump gave the instruction, Mr. Bolton wrote during an Oval Office conversation in early May that included the acting White House chief of staff, Mick Mulvaney, the president's personal lawyer, Rudolph W. Giuliani, and the White House counsel, Pat Cipollone, who is now leading the president's impeachment defense. The previously undisclosed directive that Mr. Bolton describes would be the earliest known instance of Mr. Trump seeking to harness the power of the United States government to advance his pressure campaign against Ukraine. Trump denied the report in a statement saying, quote, I never instructed John Bolton to set up a meeting for Rudy Giuliani, one of the greatest corruption fighters in America and by far the greatest mayor in the history of New York City, to meet with President Zelensky. That meeting never happened. Rudy also issued his own denial, quote, the meeting in the Times describes is a lie. If Bolton is the source and he believed this was so bad, why didn't he quit? How much integrity and honor will a man sacrifice for greed and revenge? The latest Times story follows their initial reporting that Bolton's book describes Trump telling him about linking the freeze on Ukraine aid to investigations of all things Biden, and the talk that Bolton reportedly had with Attorney General Barr about his concerns, their shared concerns, really, that the president was granting favors to autocrats. There's also news tonight about another key figure in all of this. The lawyer for one-time Rudy Giuliani associate Lev Parnas sent a letter to Mitch McConnell with a laundry list of all that Mr. Parnas could testify to if called to do so before the Senate. Parnas phoned into this network earlier tonight, said he knew Trump had asked Bolton to help pressure Ukraine.
Right after that meeting that Bolton had with Rudy, Mulvaney, Pat Cipollone, and the president, I met with Rudy right afterwards, and I discussed the whole meeting. Bolton was against doing it, but because the president told him to do it, we were under assumption that he was going to follow the orders and do it.
We have also confirmed that Marie Yovanovitch, the former U.S. ambassador to Ukraine who accused the Trump administration of carrying out a smear campaign against her, has wrapped up her 3-decade-long career and has retired from the Foreign Service. And as we mentioned, Democratic efforts to hear from new witnesses seem to be at an end. The vote makes this the first impeachment trial in our history without witnesses. And here is the calendar that McConnell has worked out for the Senate. For starters, they have the weekend off. On Monday, the day of the Iowa caucuses, 4 hours of closing arguments. Tuesday, senators begin deliberations on the articles of impeachment. The president's State of the Union address happens to be that night next door in the House chamber. On Wednesday, after more open deliberations, senators will vote on acquittal or removal. NBC News reports the Senate Majority Leader did place a call to the president, the very subject of this trial, to walk him through the schedule before proposing it to the Senate, and that the president signed off on the deal. One other thing we learned this evening, Chief Justice John Roberts did away with any lingering doubts about whether or not he would have broken a tie in the event of a 50-50 vote.
Is the Chief Justice aware that in the impeachment trial of President Johnson, Chief Justice Chase, as presiding officer, cast tie-breaking votes on both March 31st and April 2nd, 1868?
I am, Mr. Leader. The one concerned a motion to adjourn, the other concerned a motion to close deliberations. I do not regard those isolated episodes 150 years ago as sufficient to support a general authority to break ties. If the members of this body, elected by the people and accountable to them, divide equally on a motion, the normal rule is that the motion fails. I think it would be inappropriate for me, an unelected official from a different branch of government, to assert the power to change that result so that the motion would succeed.
And let's also say something else here. Also in the news today, the U.S. has added 6 more nations to the Muslim ban. The coronavirus is now a public health emergency, and the U.K. is now out of the EU. A victory for 2 men, mainly, Boris Johnson and Vladimir Putin.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.